The first sign that everything had gone sideways was the silence. Not the good kind, the tactical kind, where you know an ambush is holding its breath. No, this was deeper. This was the silence of a colony that had stopped screaming, because screaming wastes oxygen. I remember crouching behind a collapsed habitat wall, my knees pressed into regolith dust that smelled like gunpowder and rust. Sergeant Miravalles was to my left, her hand on my shoulder, a pressure code we'd invented 3 hours into this nightmare. 1 squeeze. I'm here. 2 squeezes, move. 3, run. She squeezed once. Then again, harder. Move. Valles says we're up. I whispered into my helmet calm, even though my visor was cracked and the HUD flickered like a dying firefly. Corporal Darnell Sullivan was covering our 6, his breathing heavy but controlled. Private First Class Amina Okonkwo was checking her sidearm for the 10th time in 2 minutes, a nervous habit she'd picked up after we lost Private Jong to a pressure breach. Jong hadn't even screamed. He just collapsed, like someone pulled the plug on a doll. Lieutenant Okonkwo's voice was tight. If we're moving, where exactly are we moving to? The habitation dome is compromised. The farm's flooded with ammonia. And she stopped. Didn't need to finish. We all knew. The main oxygen processing unit had been hit by a micrometeoroid shower 3 days ago. Not a big hit, just a crack the width of my thumb. But on a colony of 4,000 people with backup systems that hadn't been tested since before the war started back home, a thumb-sized crack might as well have been a gun to the head. Colonel Archer had been in command when it happened. I've been a fresh second lieutenant, assigned to logistics, which is officer speak for glorified inventory clerk. My job was to make sure we had enough MREs and ammunition. Not this. Never this. Archer had gathered the senior officers in the command bunker 12 hours ago. I was outside coordinating supply runs when I heard the shouting. Then the gunshot. Then more shouting. By the time I got to the door, Major Halsey was standing over Archer's body with a smoking pistol and a look on his face I'll never forget. Not rage, not grief, but calculation. Like he just solved an equation and didn't like the answer. Lieutenant Reyes, Halsey said, using my name like a slap. You're acting commander. Congratulations. Sir, I don't. Archer's dead. Tanaka's unconscious, stroke. Chen's in the infirmary with a ruptured eardrum. That leaves you. He tossed me a data pad. On it was a schematic of the colony's life support system. A single pipe ran from the processor to 2 distribution hubs. One east, one west. The crack was halfway between them. We had maybe 48 hours before the pressure dropped to fatal levels. But here's the thing. The pipe could be rerouted. Sealed, but only to one side. The valves were manual, old tech from the first colonization wave, designed to be operated by hand in case of an EMP. To close one side, you had to walk into the connecting corridor and turn a wheel the size of a dinner plate. The catch? The corridor was already leaking. Not fast, but fast enough that anyone who went in there would have about 90 seconds to turn the wheel before their lungs crystallized. You're telling me, I said slowly, that I have to choose which half of the colony gets oxygen? No, Halsey said. I'm telling you that you have to choose which half of the colony lives. Because whoever you don't choose suffocates in about 36 hours. He paused. And before you ask, no, we can't evacuate. The shuttles were sabotaged 6 months ago, remember? The separatists? I remembered. The Persephone Independence Front had blown up the landing pad's fuel storage as a protest against Earth's colonial taxes. 17 dead. The shuttles themselves were intact, but useless without fuel. We've been waiting for a resupply convoy that was still 3 weeks out. So, 48 hours of oxygen left in the system. 36 if we didn't seal the crack. 1 pipe, 2 valves, 2,143 people on the east side, including the infirmary, the nursery, and the hydroponic gardens. 1,908 on the west side, including the armory, the comms array, and the only working airlock large enough for a cargo hauler. I looked at Valles. She looked at me. Her face was unreadable, but her hand found my shoulder again. 1 squeeze. I'm here. Okay, I said. Okay, we're not making this decision in a bunker. We're going to the split point. I want to see the corridor myself. Halsey started to protest. I cut him off. Major, you just handed me command. That means I get to make the calls. My first call is that no one makes a choice like this without looking the devil in the eye. Understood. He nodded slowly. Something flickered across his face. Respect, maybe, or pity. Hard to tell when someone's wearing a vac suit helmet. The walk to the split point took 40 minutes. The colony's main artery was a pressurized tunnel lined with emergency lights that flickered orange, casting everything in the color of a dying sunset. We passed families huddled in doorways. A woman cradling a baby that wasn't crying. Babies cry less when the air gets thin, I learned that day. An old man reciting what sounded like a prayer in a language I didn't recognize. Two soldiers from the colony's militia, their rifles slung, but their hands hovering over the grips. Lieutenant, one of them said, a kid couldn't have been older than 19. Is it true? About the oxygen? I stopped, looked at him. His name tag read Private YU. He had a faded tattoo on his neck, some kind of bird in flight. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say everything's under control, or we're working on it. But I'd taken an oath. Not the one about obeying orders. The one I made to myself when I put on this uniform. The one that said I would never treat soldiers like chess pieces. It's true, I said, but we're going to do everything we can. Stay with your unit. Keep people calm. That's an order. He nodded. Didn't salute. We were past formalities. But his shoulders straightened just a little. Valles pulled me aside when we were out of earshot. You shouldn't have told him that, sir. Why not? Because now he'll hope. She said it like hope was a four-letter word. Maybe it was. The split point was a T-junction. To the left, the east side. To the right, the west. Straight ahead, a narrow maintenance corridor, barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side. That led to the manual valves. At the end of that corridor, 60 meters in, was a junction box where the main pipe split. The crack was somewhere in the walls between here and there. We couldn't see it, but we could hear it, a faint hiss like a snake whispering secrets. Sully knelt down and pressed a sensor against the floor. Pressure's dropping 0.03% per hour, he said. That's with the current leak. If we seal the corridor and redirect flow to one side, the other side loses pressure at 0.2% per hour. At that rate, he did the math in his head. 35 hours until hypoxia sets in. 40 until brain death. So we have 36 hours to either fix the pipe or get help, I said. Sir, we can't fix the pipe. The materials we need are on the cargo hauler. The cargo hauler is in the west side airlock. The west side airlock is controlled by, he stopped. By the separatists, I finished. Here's the twist I didn't see coming. The Persephone Independence Front hadn't just blown up the fuel storage. They'd also taken over the west side's command center 3 hours after the meteoroid strike. Their leader was a woman named Ilara Venn, former colonial administrator, turned revolutionary after Earth sentenced her son to 20 years for sedition. She had about 300 armed followers, and they'd locked down the west side's residential blocks. They weren't shooting civilians yet, but they were making demands. Give us control of the comms array. Let us send a message to the outer system. Promise us amnesty. Then we'll talk about the airlock. So let me get this straight. Okonkwo said, her voice rising. The separatists have the only way to fix the pipe, but they won't let us use it unless we give them something we can't give them because we don't have the authority to grant amnesty, and even if we did, Earth would just override it and execute them anyway. Meanwhile, we have to choose which side of the colony gets to breathe. That's about the size of it, Sully said. And the lieutenant gets to make the choice. That's also about the size of it. Okonkwo laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. No offense, sir, but you're 22. Your inventory. You once spent 45 minutes looking for a crate of thermal blankets that was in the supply closet behind you. I found them eventually, I said. Yeah, because Valles told you where to look. Valles didn't deny it. She just crossed her arms and waited. I looked down the maintenance corridor. The hiss was louder here. I could feel it in my teeth, a vibration that made my jaw ache. Somewhere in that darkness was a wheel that would seal the fate of 2,000 people. And I had to walk down there, turn it one way or the other, and live with the consequences. I'm going in, I said. Like hell you are, Valles said. Sir, I'm a commander. It's my choice to make. It's your death to die if something goes wrong. The pressure in that corridor is already below safe levels. If the crack is closer than we think, you won't make it to the valve. Then I'll run. You'll die. We stared at each other. Valles was 34, a combat veteran from the Martian pacification campaigns. She'd seen things that made my inventory sheets look like bedtime stories. She also had a daughter back on Earth, a little girl named Sophia who sent her audio messages that Valles listened to every night before sleep. I knew this because I'd heard her crying once Just once, in the supply closet, I'd spent 45 minutes searching. Sergeant, I said quietly, if I don't do this, someone else has to. And I'm not ordering anyone to die for a choice I'm too scared to make myself. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then, she nodded. Then, I'm going with you. No, not negotiable, sir. You go in, I go in. That's how this works. Sully stood up. I'll cover the entrance. If the pressure drops too fast, I'll pull you out. With what? Okonkwo asked. Your bare hands? I'll think of something. I checked my suit's oxygen readout. 32 minutes of air at normal activity. In a corridor, with the leak, maybe 20. The valve was 60 meters in. At a sprint, I could cover that in 15 seconds. Turning the wheel would take another 20. 35 seconds total. Then, another 15 seconds to get back. 50 seconds. I'd have 19 minutes of safety margin. Unless the crack was worse than we thought. Unless the corridor collapsed. Unless the separatists decided to make their move. Okay, I said. Valles, you're with me. Sully, Okonkwo you hold here. If we're not back in 2 minutes, seal the entrance and report to Major Halsey. Report what? Okonkwo asked. That I made my choice. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked into the corridor. The hiss became a roar. My suit's alarm started chirping immediately. Low pressure, low pressure, low pressure. And I killed it with a thought. No point in panic. Valles was right behind me, her boots echoing mine. The walls were bare metal, streaked with rust-colored condensation. Every few meters, a backup light flickered, showing me my own distorted reflection in the curved panels. 20 meters in, I felt it. A tugging in my chest, like someone was pulling a string attached to my sternum. The air was thinning. My suit was struggling to keep up. 30 meters. The hiss was deafening now. I could see the junction box ahead. A bulky metal rectangle with 2 massive wheels, one on each side. East and west. Left and right. Life and death. 40 meters. Valles grabbed my arm. I turned. Her faceplate was fog, but I could see her eyes. Wide. Scared. But not for herself. Sir, she said, her voice crackling through the calm, the crack. I looked down. The floor was splitting. A hairline fracture, invisible from the entrance, was now a gaping wound in the metal. Through it, I could see the void, not space, but the space between the walls where the pipe ran. And there, wrapped around the pipe like a snake, was a web of smaller cracks. The meteoroid hadn't just damaged the junction. It had shattered the entire section. 50 meters. My vision started to blur at the edges. Hypoxia. The first symptom. My brain was starving for oxygen, and it was starting to eat itself. Keep moving. 55 meters. I could reach out and touch the east wheel. It was warm. The pipe on the other side was still carrying oxygen, heating the metal. The west wheel was cold. Dead. 60 meters. I slammed into the junction box, my gloved hands fumbling for the east wheel. Valles was at my side, her hands on the west wheel, ready to brace it if needed. The plan was simple. Turn the east wheel to seal the east side's flow, redirecting everything to the west. Or turn the west wheel to seal the west side, sending it east. I hadn't decided which. Sir, Valles gasped. Time. 10 seconds of air left in my suit, according to the dying HUD. I had to choose. Now. And then I heard something that changed everything. A voice. Not over the comm, not from Valles. From inside the junction box. A child's voice, muffled and tiny, saying Mama, Manga, Imskarid. I froze. The junction box wasn't just a pipe. It was also a maintenance access point. A crawl space big enough for a small person to hide. And someone had hidden there. A kid. Maybe from the east side, maybe from the west. Maybe a refugee from the separatist fighting, maybe just a child who'd gotten lost during the chaos. The kid was inside the pipe section, the section that was about to be sealed on one side. If I turned the east wheel, the pipe would pressurize to the west, and the kid would be crushed by the surge. If I turned the west wheel, the pipe would pressurize to the east, and the kid would be crushed anyway. Unless, Valles, I said, my voice a rasp. There's a child in the pipe. She stared at me. What? A child. In a maintenance crawl space. We can't seal either side without. My suit alarm screamed. Oxygen critical. Oxygen critical. I had seconds. I made a choice. Not the one I'd planned. Not the one Halsey wanted. Not the one that made tactical sense. I grabbed both wheels, the east and the west, and I turned them together. The metal shrieked. Velez shouted something I couldn't hear. The hiss of the leak became a roar, then a scream, then a silence so complete I thought I'd gone deaf. The pipe didn't seal to either side. Instead, by turning both wheels at once, I'd open a bypass, a third path that vented the remaining oxygen into the corridor itself. It was an emergency purge system designed to clear the pipes of contaminants. It would buy us maybe 4 hours. No more. But 4 hours was enough. Enough to get the kid out. Enough to think of another plan. Enough to hope. I collapsed against the junction box, my lungs burning, my vision narrowing to a tunnel. Velez was dragging me back down the corridor, her arms around my chest, pulling with a strength I didn't know she had. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was the crawl space hatch swinging open and a small hand reaching out. A child's hand. Alive. I woke up in the infirmary with a breathing mask strapped to my face and a headache that felt like someone had driven a nail through my left temple. The ceiling above me was stained, water damage from a leaky pipe, ironically enough, and someone had drawn a smiley face in the grime with a fingertip. Probably a kid. Kids are everywhere in a colony, even when the air is running out. "You're an idiot," said a voice to my left. I turned my head slowly because the nail in my temple objected and saw Velez sitting in a plastic chair, her helmet on the floor beside her. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, a bruise on her jaw I didn't remember seeing before, and her hair, usually pulled back in a tight bun, escaping in wild curls. "Nice to see you too, Sergeant," I croaked. "I mean it. Turning both wheels? You could have ruptured the entire pipe. You could have killed us all. You could have saved a kid," I said. "Halsey's in the command bunker, drinking something that isn't water and muttering about courts-martial. He's not exactly leadership material right now." "Great. So I'm still in charge." "You're still in charge." I sat up. The room spun, then settled. My mask dragged against the pillow, hissing softly. Somewhere down the hall, a baby was crying. The same baby from before, maybe. Still alive. Still breathing air that was running out. "Give me a comm link to Ven," I said, "and find out Conquo. I need her to do something for me." "What?" "I need her to inventory the East Side's medical supplies. Every syringe, every bandage, every oxygen tank. And I need her to do it quietly. No one outside this room knows what she's looking for." Velez raised an eyebrow. "You're planning something." "I'm always planning something. It's the inventory training." She almost smiled. Almost. The comm link crackled to life 20 minutes later. I was sitting in a storage closet, the same one I'd searched for thermal blankets, because the infirmary was too crowded and the command bunker was too full of Halsey's whiskey-fueled paranoia. The walls were lined with shelves of ration packs and ammunition crates. It smelled like old coffee and gunpowder. Familiar. Safe. A lie. "Lieutenant Reyes," said a woman's voice. "A lot of N." She sounded calm, almost bored, like we were discussing the weather instead of the lives of 4,000 people. "I understand you want to negotiate." "I want to talk," I said. "Negotiation implies I have something you want. Right now, all I have is a lot of questions and very little patience." A pause. Then, "You're younger than I expected. You're more murderous than I expected. We're both disappointed." Another pause. This time, when she spoke, there was a hint of something in her voice. Amusement, maybe, or curiosity. "The child. Lau, you saved him." "I saved a child. I didn't know his name until after." "And if you had known?" "If you'd known he was from the West Side, the side you're probably planning to sacrifice because we have the comms array and the cargo hauler and the weapons, would you still have saved him?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. The answer surprised me. "Yes," I said, "because he's a kid. Kids don't get to be pawns." "That's very noble," Vin said. "But nobility doesn't keep people alive. You have 4 hours. Maybe less. What's your plan, Lieutenant? And don't say save everyone, because we both know that's not possible." She was right. It wasn't possible. But I'd learned something in that corridor, something that hadn't made it into any of my training manuals. The difference between a leader and a manager is that a manager solves problems, but a leader changes them. A manager looks at a broken pipe and sees a binary choice. A leader looks at the same pipe and asks, who installed it? Who designed it? Who decided that the valves had to be manual? Who benefits from the system? The pipe wasn't the problem. The pipe was a symptom. The real problem was that we'd built a colony on a world that wanted us dead, and We'd done it with technology that was obsolete before we left Earth. The real problem was that the Separatists weren't wrong. Earth had exploited us. The real problem was that the people with the power to fix things were either dead, drunk, or hiding in a bunker. So I did something that wasn't in the manual. I'm not going to choose which side lives, I said. Excuse me. You heard me. I'm not choosing. The colony has 4,000 people. If I pick east over west, I'm killing 2,000. If I pick west over east, I'm killing 2,000. That's not a choice. That's a massacre with extra steps. Then, what are you going to do? Let everyone die? No, I'm going to give everyone the same chance. I took a breath. The bypass gives us 4 hours. In those 4 hours, I'm going to open the emergency shelters on both sides. They have their own oxygen reserves, not enough for everyone, but enough for maybe 500 people on each side. I'm going to evacuate the infirmary, the nursery, and anyone with medical needs to the east shelter. And I'm going to evacuate anyone with engineering or technical skills to the west shelter. And everyone else? Everyone else stays where they are. They have 4 hours to say goodbye, make peace, or find a god they like. Then I seal the corridor and open the bypass again, but this time I'm not redirecting oxygen to one side. I'm going to equalize the pressure between the two shelters and the main colony. It won't save everyone, but it will give everyone another 12 hours. And in 12 hours, maybe the convoy arrives early. Maybe someone on the west side fixes the cargo hauler. Maybe the Separatists decide that being alive is more important than being right. Ben was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Softer. You're going to gamble with 4,000 lives. I'm going to give 4,000 people a chance to gamble with their own. And if it fails, then I'll be the one who failed, not them. Another silence. Then, the child. Lao, you said you saved him because he wasn't a pawn. What about the adults? Are they pawns? I looked around the storage closet, at the ration packs, at the ammunition, at the thermal blankets I'd spent 45 minutes searching for. No, I said, they're people, and people deserve to choose their own endings. Vensight, you're either very brave or very stupid, Lieutenant. I haven't decided which. Neither have I. I'll give you access to the cargo hauler, but not the comms array. Not yet. And I want something in return. What? I want to talk to Leo. His mother is here. She's been asking for him every hour since the fighting started. If you can get him to the airlock, I'll let your engineers through. I closed my eyes. The airlock was on the west side. To get Leo there, I'd have to cross the split point, go through the maintenance corridor, the one that was still leaking, and hand him over to people who might shoot me on sight. Done, I said. Getting Leo to the airlock was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not because of the danger. Well, that was real enough. But because of the look on his face when I told him he was going to see his mother. He was small, smaller than I'd expected. 6 years old, but he looked 4. Dark hair, dark eyes, and a gap-toothed smile that appeared when I said the word mama and disappeared when he saw my vac suit. Are you a soldier? He asked. Yes, I said. Do soldiers have to be brave? I knelt down, so I was at his eye level. Sometimes, I said, but mostly they have to be kind. Being brave is easy when you're scared. Being kind is hard. He thought about this. Then he held up his hand. I'm Leo. I shook it. I'm Alex. That's a girl name. It's my name. He grinned again. Okay, Alex. Let's go find Mama. Velez walked with us to the maintenance corridor. Sully was already there, checking the pressure readings. Okonkwo was waiting by the entrance, a medkit in one hand and a rifle in the other. Pressure's dropped another 3%, Sully said. You've got maybe 15 minutes in there before your suit alarms. 15 minutes is plenty, I said. We're just going to the airlock. The airlock is on the other side of the corridor. Through the junction box. Past the crack. I know where it is, Sully. I'm just saying. Leo tugged my sleeve. Is it scary in there? I looked at Velez. She looked at Leo. Then she knelt down and said something I'll never forget. It's dark, and it's cold, and it might be a little scary, but Alex is going to be with you the whole time. And I'll be right behind you. And when you come out the other side, your mama is going to be there. Okay. Leo nodded. Then he took my hand. We walked into the corridor together. The hiss was louder now. The crack in the floor had widened. I could see stars through it. Actual stars, the cold light of the Persephone system blinking at me like mocking eyes. Leo didn't look down. He kept his eyes forward, his small hand gripping mine with a ferocity that made my heart ache. 10 meters. 20, 30. The air grew thin. My suit struggled. Leo's suit, a child-sized emergency model, was already beeping a low-pressure warning. Almost there, I said. 40 meters. The junction box loomed ahead. The east and west wheels were still where I'd left them, turned halfway. The bypass was still open, venting oxygen into the corridor. But the leak was worse. Much worse. 50 meters. Leo stumbled. I caught him, lifted him into my arms. He was lighter than I expected. His arms wrapped around my neck, and he buried his face in my shoulder. "I'm scared," he whispered. "Me too," I whispered back. "But we're almost there." 60 meters. The airlock door was ahead, a heavy metal hatch with a manual wheel. Beyond it, the west side. Separatist territory. Leo's mother. I set Leo down and turned the wheel. The hatch groaned, then opened. On the other side stood a woman, tall, exhausted, with Leo's same dark eyes and gap-toothed smile. She fell to her knees, and Leo ran into her arms. "Mama," he said. "Manga, imothiai." She looked at me over his shoulder. Her eyes were full of tears. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." I nodded. "Don't thank me yet. We're not done." Behind her, I saw Van. She was standing in the shadows of the airlock, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. She was younger than I'd pictured, maybe 30, with cropped hair and a scar across her left eyebrow. She was wearing a militia uniform, but she'd removed the rank insignia. A statement, maybe, or just practicality. "Lieutenant," she said. "You kept your word." "So did you," I said. "The cargo hauler? Your engineers are already working on it. But there's a problem. There's always a problem. The hauler needs fuel. The fuel was in the storage tanks. The storage tanks were blown up by my people 6 months ago. You're telling me that the only way to fix the oxygen pipe is on a cargo hauler that can't move because the Separatists destroyed the fuel 6 months ago?" "Yes. And you didn't think to mention this before? Would it have changed anything?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch a wall. I wanted to go back to the storage closet and hide among the ration packs and pretend none of this was happening. Instead, I took a breath. Then another. "Okay," I said. "Okay, new plan." Ven raised an eyebrow. "You have another plan?" "I always have another plan. It's the inventory training." For the first time, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely a twitch of her lips, but it was there. "I like you, Lieutenant. You're either going to save us all or get us all killed. Either way, it won't be boring." That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day. Don't get used to it. The cargo hauler was a wreck. That's the kindest word I can use. It was a squat, ugly machine designed for moving shipping containers from orbit to surface, the space truck of the colonization fleet. Its engines were cold. Its fuel lines were dry. And its oxygen scrubber had been cannibalized 6 months ago to keep the infirmary running after the Separatist attack. But it had something we needed, a portable welding unit, and a pressure seal kit, and a fully stocked toolkit. Okonkwo was already inside when I got there, her head buried in the engine compartment. She'd stripped off her vac suit's outer layer and was working in just her thermal underlayer, sweat dripping down her neck. "Well," I said. "Well, the good news is that the welding unit works," she said without looking up. "The bad news is that it needs power. The hauler's batteries are dead. The only way to charge them is to connect to the colony's grid. The grid is on the east side. The east side is on the other side of a cracked pipe. So we run a cable through the maintenance corridor, the one that's leaking vacuum." "Yes." Okonkwo finally looked up. Her face was smeared with grease and something that might have been blood. "Sir, with respect, that's insane." "Probably. The cable would have to be at least 100 meters long. We don't have a 100-meter cable. We have 50-meter cables. We can connect 2 of them. The connection point would be in the corridor, in the vacuum, in the middle of a pressure leak." "Yes." She stared at me. Then she laughed. It was a real laugh this time, not the hollow one from before. "You know what, sir? I'm starting to understand why Velez follows you around like a lost puppy. You're completely out of your mind. Is that a yes?" That's a "I'll get the cables." The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Sully ran the cable from the east side's main power junction to the entrance of the maintenance corridor. Velez secured the connection point with a temporary seal, a risky maneuver that involved wrapping the exposed wires in vacuum-rated tape and praying. I coordinated from a split point, relaying messages between the east side, the west side, and the engineers who were working on the pipe. Halsey showed up at one point, reeking of alcohol and fury. "You've lost your mind," he slurred. "You're consorting with separatists. You're risking the entire colony on a long shot. I'm relieving you of command." "You can't," I said. "I'm a major. You're a lieutenant. I absolutely can." "You can try," I said. "But the soldiers are following me. The engineers are following me. Even the separatists are following me. You're standing in a corridor full of people who've decided that I'm their best chance. If you relieve me, they'll ignore you. And then you'll have to shoot me. And then you'll have to shoot them. And then you'll be standing alone in a dead colony, holding a smoking gun, and wondering why you didn't just let the kid with the inventory training do his job." Halsey's face went red, then white. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Velez watched him go. That was either very brave or very stupid. I'm starting to think they're the same thing. The cable worked. Barely. The connection point held. Velez's tape job was better than anything in the manual, and the hauler's batteries began to charge. Okonkwo fired up the welding unit and started cutting into the pipe's outer casing. "The crack is worse than we thought," she reported. "It's not one crack. It's a whole network. The pipe's been compromised for months. The meteoroid just finished the job. Can you fix it?" "Maybe, but I'll need more time. And more material. The seal kit is designed for small breaches, not this." She gestured at the pipe, which was now weeping atmosphere in a dozen places. "It's like trying to patch a sieve." I looked at the clock on my HUD. 2 hours left on the bypass. Maybe less. "How much time do you need?" 6 hours. Minimum. "We don't have 6 hours. Then we'd better find some." That's when the twist came. The one I didn't see. The one that made everything before it feel like a rehearsal. Ven appeared at my elbow, her face pale. "Lieutenant, we have a problem. We have several problems." "Which one are you talking about?" "The West Side's oxygen is failing faster than we projected. The separatists, my people, they're panicking. Some of them want to break through the corridor and take the East Side by force. Can you stop them?" "I can try. But there are 300 of them and one of me. And some of them," she hesitated, "some of them don't trust me anymore. They think I've gone soft because I let you in." "Have you?" She looked at me. Really looked at me. "I don't know," she said. Maybe I'm tired of fighting. Maybe I'm tired of watching children suffocate in crawl spaces while adults argue about politics. Maybe I just want to go home." "Where's home?" "Earth." Before it became a place I hated. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only thing that made sense. "Then help me fix this. Help me save these people. And when it's over, I'll testify for you. At your trial. I'll tell them that you chose to be a person instead of a revolutionary. I don't know if it'll help, but I'll do it." Ven's eyes widened. "Then," she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Okay. What do you need?" "I need you to get your people to the airlock. All of them. The ones who want to fight, the ones who want to run, the ones who just want to breathe. Get them to the airlock and keep them there. I'm going to seal the corridor behind me." "Seal it?" "How?" "The same way I opened the bypass. By turning both wheels at once. Only this time, I'm going to turn them all the way. It'll collapse the pipe. Cut off the leak entirely. But it'll also cut off the west side from the east side. Permanently. And the oxygen? The east side has the hydroponic gardens. The gardens have their own oxygen supply, enough for maybe 1,000 people for a week. The west side has the cargo hauler. If we can get the hauler running, we can use its scrubber to recycle the west side's air. It won't be comfortable, but it'll keep people alive until the convoy arrives." "That's your plan?" "Split the colony in half, and hope both halves don't die." "That's my plan." Ven shook her head. "You're insane." "So I've been told." The final hour was the longest of my life. I walked back into the maintenance corridor for the third time, with Velez at my side and Sully covering the entrance. Okonkwo was still working on the pipe, her welding torch sputtering in the thin air. The hiss of the leak was a constant scream now, drowning out everything except my own heartbeat. "Sir," Velez said, "if you do this, you won't have time to get out. The pipe collapse will create a vacuum surge. It'll pull everything in the corridor into the breach." "I know. You'll die." "Probably." "Then why are you doing it?" I stopped, turned to face her. Her faceplate was fogged again, but I could see her eyes. The same eyes that had watched me search for thermal blankets. The same eyes that had squeezed my shoulder in the dark. "Because I'm a commander," I said. "And commanders don't get to order people to die unless they're willing to die themselves. That's not in the manual. It should be." She grabbed my arm. "Alex, Please. It was the first time she'd used my first name. The first time anyone had, really, since the crisis started. It felt like a gift, like something precious and fragile. Mira, I said, if I don't do this, everyone dies. If I do this, maybe some of them live. That's the only math that matters. She let go of my arm. Then, she nodded. Then, I'm coming with you. No, not negotiable, sir. You go in, I go in. That's how this works. Mira, I have a daughter on Earth. Her name is Sophia. She sends me audio messages every night. I listen to them before I sleep. If I die here, someone needs to tell her that her mother died trying to save people. Not because she was following orders. Because she chose to. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I nodded. We walked to the junction box together. The wheels were warm. The hiss was deafening. Okonkwo was shouting something. I couldn't hear her, but I saw her wave her arms, telling us to stop. To wait. To think. There was no time to think. I grabbed the east wheel. Valles grabbed the west. On the count of 3, we turned. The metal screamed. The hiss became a roar. The floor beneath us cracked open, and I saw the stars again. Brighter this time, closer, like they were reaching for me. The vacuum surge hit like a physical blow, slamming me against the junction box. My helmet cracked. My vision went red. Valles was holding on to me, her arms around my chest, her lips moving in words I couldn't hear. 1 squeeze. I'm here. 2 squeezes, move. 3 squeezes, run. She squeezed 3 times. I couldn't run. I couldn't move. I could only hold onto the wheel and turn until the pipe collapsed and the hiss stopped and the silence returned. The silence of a colony that had stopped screaming because it was finally safe to breathe. I don't remember much after that. I woke up in the East Side Infirmary. Same stained ceiling, same smiley face in the grime. But this time the mask on my face was different, lighter, quieter. The air tasted like recycled hope. Valles was sitting in the same plastic chair. She was alive. We were both alive. You passed out, she said. I dragged you back. Same as before. How long? 12 hours. The pipe is sealed. The east side has the gardens. The west side has the hauler. Vince's people are working on the comms array. The convoy is still 3 weeks out, but they're sending a fast ship ahead. It'll be here in 5 days. And the people, Valles looked down at her hands. We lost some. The surge, it pulled 3 people into the breach before we could seal it. Sully was one of them. I closed my eyes. Sully, the kid with the faded tattoo. The one who'd said, I'll think of something when we needed a miracle. He saved us, Valles said. He pushed us out of the way. Took the surge himself. If he hadn't, I know. We sat in silence for a while. The baby down the hall had stopped crying. Maybe it was sleeping. Maybe it was something else. I didn't ask. What happens now? Valles said. Now we wait. We survive. We bury our dead. And when the ship gets here, we go home. Home. Earth. Wherever that is. She looked at me. You're different, Alex. The person who walked into that corridor 3 days ago, that person isn't you anymore. No, I said. That person was inventory. This person is something else. What? I thought about Leo. About his gap-toothed smile. About the way he'd said it to my name. About Vin, standing in the shadows of the airlock, choosing to be a person instead of a revolutionary. About Sully, pushing us out of the way, buying us time with his life. A leader, I said. Or maybe just a soldier who learned that the only way to win is to refuse to play the game. Valles smiled. It was a tired smile, a broken smile, but it was real. That's very philosophical for someone who spent 45 minutes looking for thermal blankets. I found them eventually, because I told you where to look. Yeah, I said, because you told me where to look. She reached out and squeezed my shoulder. Once. I'm here. And for the first time in 3 days, I believed it.